Hi, this is Deezer Organish of Group 15, and this is our urban air quality project for Environmental Engineering 5140. So our motivation for this project was to look at the physical characteristics of urbanization and how land usage may influence local air quality. This includes factors like population density, the type of construction in the area, the vegetation, and we're looking at this through the lens of how poor health outcomes can exacerbate social inequalities. So how these can kind of be ignored in cityscapes. So if we look at, we have two example pictures, one from New Albany and one from Jackson Pike, that shows the stark difference between the two.
If we were to propose an experiment to relate urbanization characteristics to air quality, the easiest way would be to set up monitoring sites in different locations around a metropolitan area, or to use existing data. In the case of Columbus, we already have a good selection of monitoring sites around Franklin County, courtesy of the EPA. We have the Fairgrounds, which is very close to downtown Columbus, Jackson Pike Wastewater Treatment Plant, which is in southwest Columbus, close to a lot of industrial areas, Smoky Row Road and Maple Canyon, some more heavily populated suburban areas, and New Albany, which is a little more sprawled out. Next, we can define the characteristics of the area surrounding each monitoring site to identify anything that may affect local air quality. Things such as population density and amount of developed land may be helpful. After defining the characteristics of each area, we can evaluate the data collected at each site and extrapolate if there is anything that may have noticeable effects on different air quality parameters. To obtain this air quality data, we will require equipment for measuring particulate matter, ozone, sulfur, and nitrous oxides. These are commonly chosen for monitoring air quality due to their prevalence and known effects on human health. The instrumentation used to capture data is to follow.
Particulate matter can be measured manually using a filter-based instrument and taking gravimetric readings, a method of quantitative chemical analysis in which the constituent sought is converted into a substance that can be separated from the sample and weighed. Another method uses light spectroscopy, a polychromatic LED light that can be used to detect particles as low as 0.18 micrometers by measuring white light scattering from the LED. This allows for continuous monitoring through an open channel, lowering maintenance and filtration constraints. Good ozone naturally occurs in the upper atmosphere, where it forms a protective layer shielding harmful ultraviolet rays. Bad ozone is not emitted directly into the air. It is created by chemical reactions between oxides of nitrogen and volatile organic compounds. This occurs when pollutants chemically react in the presence of sunlight, for example, pollutants by cars and power plants. Elevated exposures to ozone can affect sensitive vegetation and ecosystems, and in people it can aggravate lung diseases such as asthma, emphysema, and chronic bronchitis. Long-term exposure to ozone is linked to asthma development. Ozone has two principal categories for measurement techniques, local and remote. Local measurements require a sample of air for ozone's absorption of ultraviolet light or by the electrical current produced during an ozone chemical reaction. Using the electrical current produced to measure ozone requires an ozone sonde, which are small, lightweight ozone measuring devices. Usually these ozone sondes are placed on balloons, but they can be placed on research aircraft or commercial aircraft. A ground instrument called the ozone analyzer measures real-time ozone concentration of the air like a local measurement would. Ozone has a peak absorption at a wavelength of 254 nanometers, which is in the ultraviolet light region of the electromagnetic spectrum. Light energy emitted at this wavelength is not able to pass through the ozone. Inside the ozone analyzer, the sample and background air are both exposed to UV light. Both cells, sample or background, have a sensor that measures the intensity of light that passes through the air. Remote measurements detect the presence of ozone at large distances away from the instrument. Most instruments rely on the absorption of UV radiation, measuring the absorption of UV sunlight by the atmosphere or the absorption of sunlight across the Earth's surface. These instruments, satellite or ground detector, would be equipped with a Dobson spectrophotometer. This measures the amount of ozone in the atmosphere by comparing the intensity of two ultraviolet wavelengths of light.
Monitoring nitrous oxide is crucial to comply with local and federal regulations, as these gases significantly contribute to various respiratory and environmental issues. Nitrous oxides worsen ground-level ozone, leading to heightened symptoms of asthma and COPD and other respiratory conditions, particularly affecting vulnerable populations such as children and the elderly. Additionally, in high concentrations, nitrous oxides can cause eutrophication in water bodies, disrupting ecosystems and harming aquatic life. To effectively measure nitrous oxide levels, we use devices known as infrared absorption sensor. A very simple and dumbed down one is shown here on the right of this slide. These sensors emit infrared light at very specific wavelengths that nitrous oxide is able to absorb. As the infrared light travels through the air, the amount absorbed is measured by a detector, allowing for real-time calculations of the nitrous oxide concentrations. This monitoring is essential not only for regulatory compliance, as said before, but also making informed decisions to improve air quality and protect public health, which our study sets out to do. Alright, very similar to nitrous oxides, monitoring sulfur oxides is crucial for compliance with air quality standards and serves as a key indicator of pollution stemming from industrial activities. In high concentrations, these gases can lead to serious respiratory issues such as asthma, COPD, and bronchitis, which is magnified in the elderly and children populations. Additionally, in these high concentrations, sulfur oxides can contribute to the formation of acid rain, which can cause severe damage to ecosystems and adversely affect agriculture by harming crops and degrading soil quality. In order to accurately measure sulfur dioxide levels, we use a device known as a sulfur analyzer, which is shown here on the right, a very generic instrument. This device uses ultraviolet light to induce fluorescence within sulfur compounds, which is then captured, analyzed, and calculated in parts per million or parts per billion, depending on the severity of the concentration. This real-time data is essential for understanding pollution sources and developing strategies to protect both public health and the environment from the harmful effects of these gases.
So with all of these types of equipment, our expected results, it's an urban city. We're going to expect high population density and high traffic, going to lead to higher levels of pollution. This includes higher levels of particulate matter, higher levels of ozone, higher levels of sulfate, nitrogen, higher levels of everything. And we're hoping that geography in dense construction is going to play a larger role in this. That way we have something to work with going forward.
After retrieving data from the US EPA's air quality monitoring map, we were able to analyze the relationship between locations on ozone and particulate matter. Some key takeaways from the 2024 data was that concentrations were relatively consistent from site to site. Any fluctuations from weather or otherwise were shared across monitoring sites in the county. Small increases in the concentration of particulate matter were observed in areas with a higher population density, but were consistent between urban and suburban areas of the city. New Albany wins, go figure, with its geographical distance from any kind of urbanization or heavy industry. Interestingly enough, the largest concentrations of PM2.5 and PM10 were found outside of the Jackson Pike wastewater treatment plant monitoring site. After further examination, it may be caused by its proximity to multiple excavations, landfills, and heavy industrial sites. All the dust that may get kicked up and emissions from heavy equipment seem to have the largest effect on air quality in the surrounding areas. Less data was available for ozone and PM10, but some relationships are still discernible. Ozone was fairly consistent between New Albany and Maple Canyon, which seems consistent with other data. This data alone does not seem sufficient to suggest any kind of relationship with urbanization and ozone. More data collection may be required at different monitoring sites. The PM10 plot, however, visibly shows the magnitude of peaks experienced at the Jackson Pike wastewater treatment plant. Compared to even heavier populated areas like the fairgrounds or Maple Canyon monitoring sites, whatever happens in the surrounding area of Jackson Pike has a very large effect on particulate matter concentrations. So, what does this mean for stakeholders? For one, human health impacts are the most important consideration. It's a good idea to look in further detail to ensure that everyone in the city is getting safe air to breathe, otherwise social inequalities may be getting further exacerbated. This may also act as a future guideline for considerations in land development. Regulations may be considered, or future infrastructure may include future considerations for concentrated air pollution in their design. If this information is not taken into account, it may result in poor health outcomes for those based off of simple geography. Alright, thanks for watching, everyone.